With that being said, it's time to bring in our first guest. So the best way to describe the person I'm about to bring into is, number one, he's an author, but he is also one of those people that has seen a lot. But he's also a person that is very outgoing. He seems to know the baseball world better than most anybody that I've met in a long time. He's got a new book out called Stars and Strikes, and we are joined on the program now by author Dan Epstein. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
I'm good, Baxter. How you doing, man? Well, actually, I've heard how you're doing, and I hope you feel better.
Well, thank you. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, like I said, I got my orange juice in. I got my water bottle here next to me, so trying to keep it all together this morning.
I hear you.
Well, Dan, we're excited to talk to you about your new book that's coming out, Stars and Strikes. So before we dive into everything about the book, can you give people a little bit of background about who you are and where you came from?
Yeah, I guess I have seen a lot of your introduction is on the money. I currently live in Chicago. I'm a writer. I write for Rolling Stone and Guitar World and Revolver, mostly music stuff, although I do some baseball coverage as well for Rolling Stone. I've written for a whole bunch of other publications over the years. I've written a book before this one called Big Hair and Plastic Grass, which covered the 70s as a whole as far as baseball and American culture were concerned. And this new book, Stars and Strikes, is specifically zeroes in on 1976, which was a very tumultuous and important year, both in baseball and in American popular culture, which tends to get overlooked for various reasons. So
yeah.
I felt it needed to be celebrated, and so I wrote Stars and Strikes.
Absolutely, yeah. You talk about 1976. You were 10 years old in 1976, so you could say that you were at the height of your curiosity for the sports world. And after reading segments from this book and doing a little bit of research and seeing what other people have thought about the book as well, it is interesting. And I guess maybe just because I'm a little bit younger guy than you are, I didn't realize how pivotal the 1976 baseball year was. And one of the favorite things that I've read and seen about the things that you put in your book pertains to the Chicago White Sox and a uniform change they had that year. Do you mind elaborating a little bit?
Yes, 1976 is the year that Bill Veeck comes back and buys the Chicago White Sox for the second time, and in doing so keeps the franchise in Chicago. There was talk that they were going to be sold and moved elsewhere, and he takes over a team that's pretty terrible. So in order to inject more excitement into the ballpark, get people to come down and see the White Sox, even though they're awful, he devises all kinds of promotions and gimmicks, as Bill Veeck was known to do. And perhaps the most infamous, at least as far as 1976 was concerned, was he completely redesigned the Chicago White Sox outfit so that they were wearing these kind of almost like late 19th century tunics with collars on the jerseys.
Yep.
And three different kinds of pants. They were sort of like form-fitting, almost leggings, and then there are these ones that came just down to the ankles, which they called the clam diggers, and then the most legendary, which they only wore for 3 games, but which have seared the imagination of Chicago White Sox fans everywhere, were the shorts. They actually wore short pants for 3 games during the 1976 season.
And it's just incredible to see that.
Major League team has ever done that.
Do you think that it was just because of kind of the demands that the game does put on your body with all the diving and sliding and stuff that they wanted the longer pants, or was just wearing shorts in general just an awful idea from a uniform perspective?
Well, I think a lot of the players just felt they looked silly.
Sure.
And, and they looked like a softball team. And I mean, there was the issue of sliding, although one of my favorite little-known factoids about 1976 is that the Chicago White Sox were 8 for 8 in stolen base attempts while wearing short pants.
Hey, wow, look at that. That's probably a fun fact that not a lot of folks know. I mean, you think about it. I mean, I've played, pickup baseball and stuff before, and if I'm not wearing long pants, it's very rare that you're going to get me to slide into a base, regardless if I'm on grass or on the normal, baseball clay.
Yeah, so absolutely.
I can understand a major leaguer not wanting to do it, but hey, they did it 100% of the time, so it had to have been working a little bit. So maybe they were able to run faster.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say maybe they were able to run a little bit faster, too, because of that, not having to worry about it since they were just shorts.
Well, that I think was part of the theory. It was lighter weight. They actually wore them in August, so it thought like, well, it would be cooler out there, and they weren't wearing the long polyester pants that everybody else was wearing. So, it might have made a difference there to some degree. And Bill Veeck always said that really when you're sliding, you should be sliding on your hip, not your leg anyway.
True.
So
very true. I mean, that's the technical way to do it, but it doesn't always work out that way, as we know.
No, it doesn't.
Absolutely. Talking with author Dan Epstein here on the BG Sports Show. His new book, Stars and Strikes. Well, Dan, one of the other things, as you know, from the 1976 year was the expansion, and new franchises came out in Seattle and Toronto. Talk a little bit about how pivotal those were for the growth of the game.
Yeah, well, I mean, 76 is the year that those franchises are awarded. You don't get baseball played again in Seattle or in Toronto until the 77
Yep.
season. But in 76, I mean, that there is, I guess the Toronto team comes into play when the owner of the San Francisco Giants tries to sell the Giants to a Toronto organization that was going to move the team to Toronto. And this is in early 76, and the San Francisco's mayor, George Moscone, has to step in and get a court order to keep the team in the city. And meanwhile, there's up in Seattle, the city of Seattle is actually suing Major League Baseball over the removal of the Seattle Pilots after the 69 season under some very sketchy circumstances, which, as you read in my book, involved future baseball commissioner Bud Selig.
Okay, sure.
And some very, very underhanded dealings on his part that people conveniently forget. And it was that whole thing was so shady that the court actually awarded the city of Seattle a new Major League franchise. This is the only time in history that a city has been able to successfully sue Major League Baseball for a new ball club.
Wow.
And so then what happens is there's, as we know, the two teams were added to the American League, and the American League East for Toronto and American League West for Seattle. But for a while there in '76, there's a lot of controversy over this because the National League wants a Toronto team so it can have a rivalry with the Montreal Expos.
Sure, yep.
But then that would have meant 13 teams in both leagues. And most people don't know this, but there was a very serious discussion of inaugurating interleague play beginning in the 1977 season.
Wow,
because
okay.
there was the possibility of the National League taking the Toronto team instead of the American League.
Very interesting. Well, one of the things I'm just as a side note here, curious. Do you think we're going to see any more expansion teams in Major League Baseball now at all? I mean, I know it's been a while since we've had a new team, but we hear about all these other franchises, especially, Major League Soccer.